The Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast live from Bill Simmons' study. Is it? I think it's fancy enough.
It's like a library.
It's a library.
Yeah, library. Like to say library. It sounds fancier.
Sitting room. My whole life goal is to have a proper sitting room. Library.
Sitting room that you can bring people in and they could sit down and you
or
could have
that
meetings.
Nobody else but me can go in. Just surrounded by basketball and other books and mahogany and a fancy desk, and like no one's even allowed to come in.
I think you're on your way.
A safe. I want to sit. Do you have a safe in here?
Do not have a safe.
With just like mysterious documents, no money, just mysterious documents that like someone would scheme to steal in a heist movie.
This room, just because the house is old, it does have a thing that was Prohibition in the 1920s?
Yes.
Has this panel that you push where they would hide the liquor bottles.
Love it.
So we have that. I'll show that to you later.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we're going to talk about all things NBA.
Yeah.
I came up with a very Simmons-y gimmick to get us going later, but we had a trade in the interim, and I have not heard your take on the trade. The Toronto Raptors, after trading OG Anunoby for Quickly and Barrett, a trade I think we both like for both teams, just said, we're done. Pascal Siakam, you're going to be a free agent. We've lost free agents for nothing several times now, most famously with Fred VanVleet. Indiana, 3 first-round picks, 2024, Indiana's pick. 2024, the lesser of like 4 teams' picks, so it's going to be a bad pick. 2026, Indiana, top 4 protected, I believe. Bruce Brown, some other financial pieces. Give me the gut Simmons reaction to Indiana. Like, you don't see, they're not a rebuilding team. They're clearly past that. But a young, let's call them a middle tier team, throwing that much draft equity into a win now move is, we can talk about trades this made us think of from the past, but I just want the gut reaction.
Gut reaction was, why are they giving up that much for a guy who is going to be a free agent in the summer? And then you're like, oh, they must be able to sign him. Then they're like, well, wait, it's going to be a max for Pascal Siakam. How do I feel about that? I had him. We did the Ringer Top 100. I think I had him 60th because I didn't love the season he was having, especially because he stopped being able to shoot threes effectively at all. But then when you dive into it and you really think about it, he's 29. He was 23, 7, and 5 for like 5 straight years. He is pretty durable. Like in a league where everybody misses 20 games here and there, like he's.
I think I was watching a Raptors game the other day. I think they had some stat. You're mentioning this off the top of my head. I think they had some stat where like the last 3 seasons combined, he leads the league in minutes per game.
Right. He's been like 36 point something minutes a game for like 5 years in a row. So I like that, especially with the speed they play. And then you think like, all right, even I probably had him 60s to maybe he's 50, maybe he's 45, wherever. He's somewhere between 40 and 60. It's a 30-team league. Everybody's going to have 2 max spots, and now the league has shifted toward you really only get 2 max spots, so you need your second guy. And how else are they going to get somebody?
That's the point I made. So 3 first-round picks sounds like a lot for a team in Indiana's position to give up.
But 2 are in this stupid draft that everybody hates.
But I don't know enough about the draft to hate it, but everybody does hate it. So that's important for 2 reasons. Number one, the first pick is going to be a bad pick because it's like the less of a million teams. And then their pick, if they make the playoffs, which is still an if, like it's not a total 100%.
It'll be somewhere between 12 and 17.
Well, actually, it's not an if because if you look at the East, they're
a play-in team.
They're a play-in team at absolute worst. Absolute worst, because now the East is like 1 to 8, and then there's a chasm. And then there's the very sad 4-team battle for 9 and 10 between Brooklyn, Atlanta, Chicago, and Toronto, which is like, I'm not sure which one of those teams is the most depressing of those 4 teams. It's a very depressing group of teams. It might be Brooklyn. If you get swept by Portland within 10 days, it might be you as the most depressing team.
I did a little power poll for my podcast for Thursday.
Love the power poll. It's such a great, I wish I had thought of the power poll. Well, I'm angry.
It was more fun when you could write and really go on these tangents, but it's still for audio. It's fun, but I don't know what Brooklyn is. So you have, to me, it's like for Indiana, it's an identity thing, right? They know who they are. They're fun to watch, but they're ultimately not threatening. Siakam, I don't think is the second best guy in a title team, but could he be the third? Sure.
Yeah, you don't. When you're the Indiana Pacers, you do not get to go shopping at the Superstar grocery store. Like
no.
These you don't have your pick of guys to become available. Not only that, like we talked about the 2 picks. The fact that they convey immediately is big because if Indiana ever wants to make another trade in the future, they don't have like the Stepien rule obligation hanging over their head forever and ever. They just have that 1 pick left to deal.
Can I step on your corner with that? Well, actually, I think it's both of our corners where we just get super upset about something mundane.
Yes.
Can we just get rid of all the draft pick rules?
You just want...
Just get rid of them. We made these rules in the 1980s when half the league was on cocaine and we had crazy owners who like own bowling alleys or own like, the owner, it's not like it was in 1982. We don't need to protect owners from themselves anymore. If somebody wants to be dumb enough to trade 8 first-round picks in a row... You want to see
a franchise get stuck in dumb purgatory forever.
But who cares? Like, you're going to be stuck in some sort of purgatory anyway. Either you're going to be spending way too much money on players or you're going to be whatever. But I don't know why we have to protect dumb owners from themselves.
See,
Let them protect themselves.
The league thought for a second about going the other way in the wake of when it became clear what a disaster the Celtics-Nets trade was for the Nets.
Yeah.
The league at one point, I think it was the league. Maybe it came from a team, but they pitched a rule to the competition committee or the rules GM's committee, one of the million committees they have, that they're like, maybe we should ban pick swaps. Like if my team owes your team a pick in year 1 and year 3, we shouldn't be allowed to swap picks in the intervening middle year because it just screws the team that owes the pick so badly, and it screwed the Nets so badly, and that didn't get anywhere. But the league thought the opposite. The league was like, maybe we need to protect these teams even more from each other because they've discovered this like swap loophole.
It's a professional sports league. It's competitive. What is the point of protecting people? Don't be in the league if you can't handle it.
So their nightmare scenario is probably not like, no disrespect intended, Charlotte being stuck for 10 years. Their nightmare scenario is like the Lakers being just screwed for 10 years. Like that's bad in their view. But we're off track. But I
think it's important because
I don't mind chaos though. I don't mind. You want chaos. I don't mind it.
But when we're trying to figure out these trades and who has what, and we're going to hit this point in the mid 2020s when 15 teams has somebody else's first round pick. It's like, this shouldn't be part of our job to be like, wait, Brooklyn, they're sending Houston's pick that way, but then they have these picks back. It's like following geometry.
Back to the Pacers.
Yeah, back to the Pacers. So they have the number 1 player, they have the number 3 player. They don't have the number 2 player, but at least they're closer to being something.
And I think he's a good fit. I mean, he's 6 years older than Halliburton, and everyone wants to construct these perfect teams where the ages line up. You don't always get to do that. And he's a speed demon in transition, which is perfect for Halliburton. They have a shooting center, Miles Turner, so like Siakam can be the guy who rolls to the rim, and Turner can space the floor. Siakam can run pick and roll with Halliburton screening with Buddy Hield, all that stuff.
And
defense.
And he can be your small ball 5.
He's a small ball 5. He can run the offense when Halliburton rests. He's another good defensive player on the team that does not have enough of those. The price is the price. Like they're obviously, I would imagine that they have a good idea they will be able to re-sign him. And to your point about, you don't get to have your pick of guys. Another reason they don't get to have their pick of guys is they know, like, let's say someone better than Pascal Siakam becomes available in a year. Someone who is the perfect number 2 guy, whose age lines up with Halliburton. You're going to get outbid by Oklahoma City, Utah, Houston, all these teams with a million picks. And so you kind of take what you can get. And I think it's a good fit. If I were them, I'd be just like Toronto's going to take some calls on Bruce Brown, I would imagine.
I can't believe he's still on the team.
Bruce Brown.
He fits in on 7 contenders, and his contract, I thought his contract was 25. It's really the base is 22. So like a team like Philly can just trade Marcus Morris and Daniel House and 2 firsts or whatever, and just like all of a sudden they have Bruce Brown.
If I were Indiana, I'd be trying to see if I could maybe get a pick for Obi Toppin now that I have Siakam. Like, see if I can spin that. But
you think Detroit will take him? Because they need forwards and centers. Oh no, they have 40.
Well, they keep signing them and then paying to get off of them. Like everyone was so excited about, look at Detroit. They opened up all this cap space by trading Bagley.
So stupid.
It was inexplicable that they signed Bagley to that deal in the first place.
That's my favorite thing is when I said this on my pod yesterday. When a team does something dumb and then they have to get off on it 6 months later and then they brag about how, we've opened up cap space now. And it's like, aren't you the same guys who clogged up the cap space 6 months ago? Why do I have to congratulate you? I like the trade for Toronto because they're losing Siakam anyway. He's clearly leaving. Their team was going nowhere. I don't want them to trade Bruce Brown right away. I kind of want to watch the Quickly, Barrett, Gary Trent, Bruce Brown. It's just that Pirtle. It's like a weird team, that Schroeder of annoying guys who play really hard, and I kind of want to watch it.
Bruce Brown is going to have value, and they can wait and let all these contenders sort of figure out how much we want to bid on Bruce Brown.
He's at least a first-round pick, right? You're making a face, really?
It would be a bad first. Like, you're not getting a good first for Bruce. But, like, people have told me, like, Tyus Jones is a name that has come up a lot in trade talks. Like, you know, and I won't speculate the teams, but the whole, like, can Washington get a first for Tyus Jones? Most people you talk to are like, no, maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, not a first. So Bruce Brown, a first. I mean, you do have him under control for a year if you want after this year, because it's a team option, I think, on the next year.
Would he be in Philly's crunch time lineup?
So I think let's get to Philly later.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think he's worth the first because he is a crunch time lineup. I remember going to the Lakers-Denver game when they were clinching, when they swept, and he played really well, and he came out with like 4 minutes left. And he's so competitive, and he was so upset that he was coming up, but not like he was just mad, but mad in the right way, because he wanted to be out there, because he felt like he was one of the best guys in the team. I just think that guy can be in a final series, and you can be comfortable with him in big spots.
Yes, and he's like roughly on the level of like DeAnthony Melton, probably as a player. Like, if you ranked all the players in the league, they'd probably be around the same level. Batum doesn't score as much, but is like the perfect role player. Philly needs like one more guy that's slightly better than those guys. I don't know if they need to make a big splash. We'll talk about Philly later.
Bogdanovich?
Maybe. Which one? You have to specify your
Detroit Bogdanovich.
Bogdanovich. I agree. Toronto did fine given the circumstances.
They did fine. So they turned Siakam and Anunoby into Quickly, Barrett, Brown, 3 firsts.
And the Detroit
and the 31st
second.
pick in the draft.
Washington might make a run at the 31st pick.
How about Charlotte? When's Charlotte winning again?
Or Portland. I mean, those teams are really, really bad.
Well, we have 5 teams that are -9 in net rating right now, which I don't remember that happening in a while.
Let me ask you this. If you grew up in New England, if there were ice in your driveway, do you think you could make it to a game that night?
So what are all the details?
I haven't looked up all the details. People are talking more in the league about that today than they are about the Pascal Siakam trade. Everyone is dying to know, like, is it a steep hill? Was the tweets made the ice sheet at DeAndre Ayton's house sound like it was like a living entity, like the ice sheet couldn't be eliminated, it couldn't be moved. Like, I don't know. I need to know all. Someone asked me today, like, could they send a helicopter for him? I need to know all the details of this.
So Instagram, do you go on Instagram or no? You're Spock. You don't do Instagram. I do Instagram, and the algorithm, things that you like, and it ends up shooting more of that stuff at you. For some reason, one of the things that shoots at me is like people falling down driveways.
So, I mean,
and maybe Ayton was worried about being on one of those videos. I assume he must have some fancy sports car with summer tires on them, and it was like, just there's no way in hell he was getting out of the driveway. Honestly, with the tires in the car. And
the thing that surprised me the most was that he was going to play in a basketball game. I feel like he has not really even played this whole season. I know he's played a bunch of games, but it doesn't seem like he's played.
Well, you and I were both on Ayton Island, I think, at least feeling like he was an asset, and I think I might have to sell my stock.
I was out to dinner after the Lakers game last night talking to a coach about the 2021 finals between the Suns and the Bucks. And we were like, man, remember like all the Ayton and Jokic? Like Jokic was like, I respect this guy. There was like Ayton made it. He figured out the kind of player he was. Like, how far is he just sort of fallen off the map since that? And it's not even that long ago.
Well, this is one of the many lessons of the NBA is sometimes people get paid and that's it. And he got a big contract, and he's honestly never been the same. Like, he wasn't very good last year either. And he's getting paid $30 million a year. And some people feel like, I've made it, I don't need to keep working. Then there's the other people that are like, they gave me this money, now I got to go up a level. And those are the guys, somebody like Halliburton. You give Halliburton money, he's going to be like, okay, now what's the next step for me?
Give me some players.
Give me some players. Guys. I want to win a title now. I want to do right by you guys. Ayton, I don't think is wired that way.
All right, let's close the book on this trade. So Toronto is going to get hammered for not trading these guys early enough. Like, how much more could they have gotten? I actually think that's overblown. They probably could have got a little bit more, but they did pretty well. And it was not insane that they decided, like, let's see what this team could maybe do, give it one more try. And they did. Like,
yeah,
if you weigh like how much more could you have actually gotten versus what was it worth for us to see this team through a little bit more, I think it comes out even in the end.
I thought they should have traded Van Vliet last year.
Their offer sucked.
I get it, but then he just left, and you're basically turning into Dennis Schroeder.
Ooh, ouch. Mark Stein reported today in his newsletter that Atlanta's best offer for Siakam. Now, who knows if this is true, right? I mean, like, it's Mark Stein, but it's also just like who is accurate, but it's also like this is lying season all the time.
Yeah.
And this would have been an outdated offer because I think Atlanta fell out of the Pascal Siakam bidding because they need to figure out, like, what the hell are we doing? Was DeAndre Hunter, 1 pick, and AJ Griffin, who mysteriously, like, just doesn't play anymore. Like, that's not...
That's an awful offer.
I think that's worse than what Toronto got.
Where was Utah during this, and where was Sacramento?
Sacramento was there. Remember, there was like a hot second when it might have been Sacramento. I think there was some truth. From what I've heard, there was some truth to that. Sacramento is in it. Their hesitation was some of either or a mix of, do we want to pay a third gigantic salary alongside Fox and Sabonis when we have this rising young guy who's kind of similar to Siakam positionally, Keegan Murray, and or does Siakam actually want to re-sign here? Are we willing to risk it? You know, or have we gotten smoke signals that maybe he doesn't? But they were in it at some point. But
I don't love the fit for him in Sacramento.
I totally think Sacramento. If I'm Sacramento has had 2 punches to the gut in a row with the Dame shot and what was the other game the blown 22-point lead against Phoenix. Their point differential is almost a flat 0 at this point, like, even though their record is pretty good. And if I'm them, I'm like, I'm not getting over exuberant. Like, I don't have to make the second round this year. I don't have to get out of the play, and like, I have a nice team. The worst thing we can do is something dumb. Like, let's just, if we have to stand pat, we have to stand pat. If we find a marginal move, that's fine. Let's not do it. Like, to me, I'm not overpaying for like a Zach LaVine or anybody like that. I'm not doing that.
We're aligned. To me, it's are they going to pass OKC and Minnesota and Denver in that conference? And the way the Clippers are playing now, no chance.
The first trade I thought of when the Siakam trade happened, this is where my brain went. My brain was partially wrong. I just want to preemptively say that, was Chicago acquiring Vucevic as sort of like, okay, here's a team that's kind of in the middle, throwing a lot of chips in and telling themselves, well, our picks will be in the 20s because we're acquiring a good player. Like, this is a safe thing to do. And then it backfires.
And they threw in Carter in that trade too, who I think had more value than Brown.
And then I had to look, like, they got Vucevic in the middle of the season, and not until the following summer did they get DeRozan and Ball and all of that. So that team, I think, was markedly worse than this Indiana team and at greater risk of actually what happening, where they end up coughing up a top 10 pick that becomes Franz Wagner. I think Indiana should be safe-ish from that over the next 3 years. So I didn't find a great perfect comp for it, but it's fine. Should we move on?
I'm glad you brought up the Vooch trade because I actually looked this up afterwards. I had my brain went the same place. And I thought they traded him when they already had DeRozan and LaVine together, and they didn't. And they just had LaVine, and they were like a 500 team.
They're a mess.
It's a pretty weird trade in retrospect.
I hated it right from the beginning for Chicago. And like, a lot of people in Orlando were mad. Like, we sold Lowe on Vooch. He's a homegrown also. I'm like,
right.
Like, Vooch is fine. Plotting center, entering his 30s. It's a good trade. It was obviously a good trade.
Amazing trade for Orlando.
All right. Any other thoughts on this trade? Any other teams you wanted to get into the bidding?
Well, the only thing I had
Did you like Philly? Did you like Philly as a Siakam team?
No, because he can't shoot threes. And Harris would have had to been in the trade, and I just don't think that makes sense for them. The only thing with the Siakam thing we didn't hit was what turf is now open for other teams, what players, like basically Indiana made their move. So who are the other teams that are like, we need to make a move? And it just seems like there's a lot of smoke signals on that. We know Philly's doing something. I would assume, I mean, if OKC doesn't get a big man, I'm going to be pissed because especially you went to that Clipper game the other night and Chet didn't have it, and it was obvious from 2 minutes in, and they have no Chet insurance at all. The guy's a rookie. They have a real chance to make the finals, and they have no real size if it's not working out for him or if he gets in foul trouble. I find it really hard to believe they're not going to address that. And whether is it Pirtle? Is it Quinn Capella? Is it Nick Richards? Like, who is it? Who has size?
I don't know what they...
Why'd you make a face at Nick Richards? Jesus.
Because I'm not sure that's the guy.
Nick Richards.
He's fine.
He grabs some rebounds.
He can. They cannot. They're a horrible rebounding team, which is baked into how they play small ball basically the whole game. I don't look. No one has any credible Oklahoma City intel like that. It's impossible to get. So this is just my gut. I think they're going to do something. I just don't think it'll be something like big. But I think I've been saying all year like they need to go get one more guy who could be their 6th man, 7th man, 5th man, something like that. Like, and if he's a center, fine. If he's a big power forward, fine. I just think they need one more guy who's like a little better, who's better than like Aaron Wiggins and Kenrich Williams, who I like, who's a good player, but like one more like high level, like, all right, like how you said about Bruce Brown. Like, it's credible he can be on the floor in the last 5 minutes of a high level playoff game. Like, one more guy like that.
Claxton, I think, is the interesting upside guy, and I think he would probably cost at least 1 first and then probably a crappy first.
Yeah.
But he's like 1.5 firsts, right? But if you add Claxton to that team, it's just they have way more options, you know. The weird thing is there's not like an awesome 7-foot what, like a Rob Williams made so much sense. That was like the perfect Thunder guy, but he's hurt.
You just wonder how much of a change it is midstream to start playing Chet at the 4 for like extended minutes. They did it in Summer League a lot when you played with the big Jalen Williams. By the way, how good is wing Jalen Williams?
Oh my God.
That dude is a stud. I mean, an absolute stud. That game against the Clippers, we were both at that game. That was one of those games where you just sit back. Like, sometimes you stumble into these regular season games where the two teams are really good and they decide, like, we're really going for this game. Like, tactically, we're going, all right, Kawhi, time to guard SGA in crunch time.
That was awesome.
Like, we're targeting this guy, we're targeting that guy. It was an awesome game to the point that I was sitting next to a scout and I turned to him, I said, can you believe, like, I'm again, apologies to the Charlotte Hornets. This is just the team that came to my mind. It's like, can you believe, like, Charlotte is in the same basketball league as these two teams who are watching right now, that they play in the same, like, they're supposed to be equivalent? Like, it was a crazy game.
And the Clippers shot the ball really well and just played really well. And the Thunder would fall behind by 9 or 10. Isaiah Joe would just hit another 3. All of a sudden they climbed back. And they made like these 2-3 runs coming back from like 10, 11, 9.
Took the lead late in the game.
Took the lead,
up by
but
1.
Anytime the Clippers needed to get a good shot, they got it. That honestly, that was the first time I drove home. I did a stupid Instagram short about it. I was like, I actually thought the Clippers looked like a finals team. I don't know if they're going to make the finals, but that was the first time that I watched them in person and said to myself, all right, if they can stay healthy, if they can keep this, if they can stay as unselfish as they were in this game I just watched, this is a team that could be in the finals. Then they're bringing in Powell. They're bringing in Tice. Their bench guys are guys that have been in big games already. They're not great. I really like Powell.
And they didn't have Zubac, who's huge for them.
Right.
And Harden has like totally unlocked him as a different level of player.
He's unrecognizable to the player he was in Philly. He does not have the ball that much. He flings it around. He's like reinvented himself. Obviously I'm going to keep my guard up because it's James Harden, but dare I say this is my favorite version ever of James Harden? Is that fair?
It just depends on your taste for step back threes, I guess. Like if you enjoyed, there was something about peak Houston James Harden
as a one-man wrecking crew
who just basically like broke basketball.
Yeah.
To the point that, remember, at first it was the Bucks and then Utah did some version of it too. They're like, we're gonna kind of guard you like on your back, and give you driving lanes because we just don't know what to do anymore. And like, and Utah when they played in the playoffs, played all these gimmicky defenses to the point that their own players were kind of confused about what to do. And I kind of liked the way that he broke basketball. It's
been interesting to hear the feedback from the Clippers people about how much they like him. and how like hard he works and just things I wouldn't have expected. Certainly things you didn't hear all the time, and maybe his last couple stops consistently.
They love how he's taking the big guys under their wing and like after practice every day. Yeah. Zoo, come here, let's work on pick and roll.
He's been excellent. And Kawhi, I mean, that block he had on Shea was the best moment I've seen this year. I've been in a bunch of games.
It was like, I mean, the iconic Kawhi block is Game 6 against the Thunder in 2014.
Right.
When the Spurs were like, not reeling, but you've had a feeling like the Thunder had played the Spurs really well in the playoffs before. We're getting way off track. But that was on Russ in the last minute of a crazy game that the Spurs won in overtime, I believe. Tony Parker got hurt in the first half. Corey Joseph had to come in and play that game for the Spurs, and the Kawhi has a crazy chase down. It's like a grab. It's not. It's like grab block.
It was an old school one where he let the guy go by him a little bit. And this is Shea. Like, nobody blocked Shea in a drive. Like, nobody. And he beat him, and he thought he had him, and then Kawhi did that ramp-up thing that, honestly, he hasn't done for like 4 years. So he looks great. The Clippers look great. I don't know what to say. I hated the trade, and it's maybe a loss. Who knows? One of those guys could, with the injury history, I'm not.
Last thing on the trade, I just want to say this to say.
Yeah.
3 picks. I think the Pacers could have done a different version of the trade where either Jarris Walker or Mathurin is in the trade and like 1 or 2 or in some versions all the picks come out and they say, you know what, we like these guys. The picks are the picks. Let's get them. I think that's like a defensible decision. Okay,
maybe
the Simmons-y
maybe that's the next trade. Maybe they're not done.
Maybe they're not done.
All
right, here's the gimmick. I asked you to rank championship pressure index. We're at the halfway point of the season. We're starting to know who these teams are and who needs to actually figure out who they are in a much more urgent, compressed timeline. I said teams, players. I went all teams. Just who flat out.
A disgusting move by you.
Why?
Because you came up with the gimmick, and it was like teams, players.
Whatever you want.
It could be whatever you want. And then you texted me an hour ago, and you're like, I did all teams.
Which is what you would do. You would just give me a 30 minutes notice, hey, we're doing this.
No, I'd give you like 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe 2. I went all teams, so you can do whatever you want. Okay. Most pressure, championship pressure index with halfway of the season left. Who is your number one? This team or entity is under the most pressure.
So you'll be happy to know that I went all players.
Oh, nice.
Except for my number one pick, the Boston Celtics.
That's also my number one pick.
I think they have to be the number one pick because they made the finals in 22. They weren't supposed to be in the finals, yet they were seemingly had a good chance to win the finals. And then this black swan event of Andrew Wiggins playing the greatest basketball he's ever played in his career. He hasn't approached it since in any capacity before or since. All of a sudden became Scottie Pippen crossed with a 12 rebounds a game guy, crossed with a 40% three-point shooter, and was the second best player in the series. Not just the Warriors, the series. So you have that. Then you have Jordan Poole, who, for whatever reason, games 4, games 5, game 6, is this transformative 8-minute stretch guy when either Curry's out there or Curry's not. And these two things happen, and the Celtics lose their composure and they lose. Then last year, you know what happened with that.
I do.
They have the best team. Now, whether they can stay healthy, whether Porzingis, they can get 9 straight weeks out of him, whether Al Horford can hold up, whether they can avoid the stupid injuries that happen sometimes, I don't know. But they have the best team. They're 20-0 at home. They beat the crap out of teams.
You and I are both now in full-on home record tracking.
I love 20-0.
Look at the home schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Who's coming up. Like 40-1 is in play, and it's very exciting.
And there's been some signs with them that they're just getting it. I don't think the credit stuff matters anymore. I really think they're about who's winning. Everybody got paid. Everybody's in the right spots. But when I said this on my pod, but when Tatum guarded Shea, that was like a big deal for this team. Because a year ago, I don't think he would have done it. I think he would have been like, no, it's going to take away from my offense. Not selfish, but, he was in the mindset of, no, I got to beat Shea. I got to outscore him. But now I think he's starting to understand, like, some nights they need my defensive rebounding. Jalen is just the best version of Jalen we've ever had. He's picks his spots the best. And I don't think for the start of the year, there really felt like there was some hero ball stuff with him that was going to be problematic. That stuff is gone.
And he's also a good hero ball shot maker. And sometimes you just need a guy to like do that with 5 on the shot clock.
He can do
rise
it.
up and get an 18-footer. So I was looking up.
But don't you think like the White and Holiday, how those guys, just what their makeup is and how unselfish it is? It's hard to be selfish when you're on a team with those two guys.
So Holiday is averaging like 13 a game, right? Like lowest in a long time. And I had somebody say to me a couple weeks ago, like, in retrospect, do the Celtics really even like need Drew Holiday? Should they have paid?
Oh my God!
Should they have paid less? Stick with me. Should they have paid less and gotten someone like Alex Caruso and still have all this draft equity left that they spent, and maybe Rob Williams or whatever? And I said, respectfully, like, there's going to be a playoff game where Drew Holiday scores 32 points, and that's the reason the Celtics win.
Yeah.
And it might be just one game or 2 games. Like, Alex Caruso can't do that. And we've seen that in some recent games where Tatum is sat, or they've had, you know, they seem to have one guy sit like every third game, and like Drew Holiday goes bananas. So I have them as number 1 as well. It's just like, even though they're young or in their middle of their careers, in middle of their primes for the most part, there is a thing where like you just can't almost win a million times in a row without anything happening.
Yeah, it becomes your identity.
And I guess you could say they did change their team pretty dramatically this past offseason. So maybe it's like they're kind of starting from like angst scratch, like all the angst is washed out. Like Marcus Smart's gone. We have a new team with Porzingis. That's exciting. But it really is like
Grant's not
Tatum,
talking.
Brown. Like you can only get all the way up the mountain and fall so many times before something else gives. And I agree with you. Like, I think they're just flat out the best team. The if they're healthy thing applies to every team, the Clippers more than anybody else. So, like, yes, of course. I think they're the best team. And on Jalen, you and I on the same day by accident released these, like, Jalen Brown monologues about how, like, Jalen Brown, it was after the Charlotte game where he was awful down the stretch, and he had kind of been just, like, hero balling beginning of the year. Since then, I'm not saying any cause and effect to be clear, but he's been really good. And I looked up this stat in relation to another player today. Second spectrum, you know, you can like look at the pick and roll rankings, like most efficient per possession. Number 1 in the entire league when I looked it up, points per possession on possessions where this player runs a pick and roll was Jalen Brown.
Interesting.
And I was like, whoa.
Because there's really good post-up stats with him and Tatum this year, too. I mean, Porzingis is on another planet, but...
Do you think do you think they need to get one more bench guy? And given their salary constraints, which are pretty, like it's hard for them to cobble up together a real salary without trading from their real rotation. Like, is there a guy that you've pinpointed as like, I'd like to get that guy. He can play like 9 minutes a game for us.
They need a big guard. They need a guard with size for those matchups when Pritchard just seems tiny. That's their one need. I'm fine with everything else.
Don't they have like 9 guards with size?
Nah, but
Drew Holiday, Derek White. I mean, Jalen and Jason can guard those guys. You bench guard.
Just those, like a bench guard, like a 6'5" bench guard with size who can come in and hit a 3, like a buyout guy. I think they're fine everywhere else. I'm the most optimistic I've been at this point of the year with the Celtics team since 2009, the year KG got hurt, where it's just like, we have the best team. Like this should be, this is actually could be happening. And then you look around and every other team seems to have slightly more flaws than them. But it's like anything else. It's going to come down to Tatum. They could be in the right position to win. Everything could be in place. And if he doesn't rise to the occasion at least a little, it's not going to matter. And ultimately, it's his team, and there's going to be mano a manos against the other team's best player. It's going to happen in Philly. Embiid, who's, is somebody said to me on the phone today, is he one of the best shooters in the league? Like, forget about best shooting big men ever and all the big man stuff. Is he just one of the best shooters in the league? The guy makes every kind of 20-footer, 15-footer, 25-footer, and he's a 90% free throw shooter. It's like maybe he's on some other list that I didn't even think he should be on.
He does that thing where he's 16 feet away and he jab steps and he fakes and he waits for you to reach into the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And either I'm going to make the foul, make the shot, or get the foul. And like people reach in. It's
the way to guard him is you just have to get right in his space with a smaller guy. And I thought it was really interesting how the Celtics defended him with Holiday. Yeah, but like I think Anunoby could do that I think if the Knicks play them in a playoff series, I think Anunoby can get right in his chest and make him put the ball on the floor and do stuff. But I think the thing I love about the Celtics team is they have. Last year they had no lineup options. They had no malleability. This year they can go big, they can go small. Like they can play Tatum at the 5 if they wanted to. The way he rebounds, they could get away with it for 5 minutes. They could play 3 guards together. They could play multiple wing. Like they can basically compete with any style. And I think that's what makes them special. And Porzingis is the superpower of all of it.
It doesn't make you nervous. This is the counter argument to the Celtics.
No, everything makes me nervous.
That against Philly, they won't have the best player. Against Milwaukee, they won't have the best player. Against Denver, they won't have the best player. That doesn't make you nervous. It doesn't make me nervous. I think that's kind of a.
I think Tatum could match Embiid.
See, I'm with you. Like the Tatum playoff discourse is really interesting to me because even the way you were just talking about him, there's this perception that he has kind of fallen 10% short of what everybody hopes he could be.
He's 26.
He's also had like that game in Milwaukee in 2022,
right?
Game 6. He scored 50 in a game against Philly. Didn't he hit 50 in Game 7?
He had 2 monster. And
like,
I got his rookie year.
He's had a lot of big games where I'm like, I'm kind of okay with that dude as my number 1 guy in the playoffs.
What about his rookie year, Game 7? He was the only Celtic that showed up against LeBron. And that I'm fine with Tatum. He's still a year away from hitting whatever ceiling he's going to hit. But it's weird to me that people don't ever mention his age when they're like, Tatum in the clutch. It's like, oh, sorry, he was 25 last year. I think we're okay.
And he's done stuff in the clutch where I know he was it really comes down to the finals against the Warriors where I think people were disappointed a little bit by how he played. But you know, he's in the finals at age 24. That's not easy.
And also it was a really long, season playoffs. He killed Durant in that matchup. I think the thing that he's added, his ability now to post up and bully people, he just wasn't able to do that until this year. And that's
bully is the key word there because he's not, and Porzingis, same thing. They're not settling for the easy turnaround, whatever. They're trying to burrow into you and move your ass out of the way and draw contact. And like I've said this before a million times, my thing with the Celtics is rim, free throws.
Yeah,
just like Derek White. I was going to write about this in my column, but I ended up not doing it. There's like kickouts that are good. Like I'm not going to be able to finish this at the rim and that guy's wide open. And there are kickouts where it's like, this is semi-contested at the rim, but if I go for it, I'm probably going to get fouled. Just go for it, man. I don't want you to don't kick it out every single time for threes. Okay. Can I do one?
Well, we both had the same first pick, so that means I get to go.
Go again.
My second pick is not somebody you will have.
I'm very excited.
Dame Lillard.
I have the Bucks 3rd on my list. I think they would come in lower than that. Like most people would think of Sixers, Clippers, Suns, other teams before the Bucks. I have the Bucks 3rd. So we're on the same page, and I'm interested to hear your Lillard take.
Well, it's Dame, and I had Griffin as my 6th pick.
He's a big part of why I have the Bucks 3rd.
So my 2 questions are, Dame, you made the Western Finals once and you got killed.
By the Warriors without Durant, but still.
That's fine. We've never seen you in this spot where 4 straight rounds, you're going to have to produce. You can't have your 3 for 17 nights, and you're going to get hunted on defense by every smart playoff team. What's it going to look like? It's probably going to be fine, but I want to see it. And I also like if it goes, you know how the discourse goes, especially when there's less teams, and they're down 2-1 to some crap team in round 1, and Dame gets lit up for like 39, and the other team shoots 62%, and that starts the whole, wait, Dame's bad on defense. Did you guys know this? It's like, yeah, we've been here for the last couple of years. I just think the ebb and flow of the playoffs and the fact that he's a little hit or miss sometimes, I think is going to be a really fascinating wrinkle. Giannis has already won. Lopez and Middleton have already won. He's the one that needs it. And what's he going to look like on that stage? We saw him, even if you look at, what was it, the World Championships or whatever, 2 years ago, he sucked. So is he going to come through? How big is he going to come through? And how great is he? Because this is going to be the referendum on Dame, this playoffs.
So he has not, I mean, you're talking about a guy who has made 2 walk-off playoff series winning shots.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to you?
It's fine.
I mean, they're both in the first round. They're both in the first round.
He's one of the 75 best players of all time. Like, I'm not disputing the fact that he's a great player, but this is like, these are different stakes now. You got Giannis on your team. Giannis is a maniac. Giannis is like, what, plus 14.5 on off this year? Giannis is possessed. I mean, have you watched him day to day?
I'm so glad
he's like angry Giannis this year.
So I have come around to, I think the whole discussion of the Bucks this season has been a little strange. Like, I think you and I have ranked them higher on our pressure list than most people would. People just aren't talking about them a lot.
Well, because they keep stealing wins, and their record is better than the team.
Well, and so then there's been all this focus on, like, well, their defense stinks, their perimeter defense is awful. Look what they sacrificed in trading Drew Holiday. Like, I'm starting to think we might be underrating them a little bit, and the number one reason is, like, Giannis looks like a man possessed right now. Like, that guy is out for blood every single game. And if you look at their numbers, now I know Middleton, he's now climbing up to a normal minutes.
I like what you're doing here. You're doing a nice zag. I'm really respecting it.
I looked them up in the car on the way here with their 4 best players on the floor: Dame, Middleton, Giannis, Lopez. They're plus 15 per 100 possessions with a good defensive rating, despite all the noise and all. Now is the 5th guy, and they don't have an ideal 5th guy. Malik Beasley's like overmatched defensively. Offensively, he's been amazing. I think they have not been talked about enough because people have focused on all their flaws and focused on the coaching and Giannis like side-eyeing Adrian Griffin from the scorers table that one game and the weird schemes they were playing early in the season.
Which one game? It was like 10 of them.
The weird schemes they were playing and the players like, hey, we don't like that, and some of the other noise that's come in. Like, and by the way, was he like the unanimous choice for that job within the Bucks brain trust and like some of the other candidates they considered, the road's not taken, all that? They're starting to look like a pretty goddamn good team. And they're so high on my pressure list because they're old. Like it's not guaranteed. Giannis is guaranteed, but like the rest of the team's kind of old. They don't have a ton of young guys. After this season, they will be able to trade 2 first-round picks. Right now, they really can't trade very much at all. I like the Jackson Jr. kid, though.
I do, too.
This is a really, like...
I'm surprised you didn't like Wiggins.
Which Wiggins?
On OKC.
Aaron Wiggins is fine. He just...
I thought he would make that weird list you have of the guys... I used to do the Bill Simmons All-Stars. What's your list called?
The Luke Walton All-Stars.
Yeah. The guys that... I just kind of inexplicably like Wiggins.
He's good. He's a very good defensive player, and he's actually shot threes pretty well. I don't know. I just think the Bucks are right there, and they just have fallen to the side a little bit. And I think they belong right in the heart of all these, both the contention discussion and the pressure discussion. But then they have a game. Did you see them against Cleveland last night without Giannis?
Yeah, they looked like an expansion team.
It was shocking how bad they looked. And Dame...
It actually makes you wonder, like, how much does Giannis cover up on this team?
Dame his numbers are okay, 25 a game. His shooting's a little down, well documented. There are some nights where he doesn't look as like zippy and bouncy to me.
That's what I'm saying about the playoffs. Like he's a once a week guy sometimes.
But in their transition defense, I don't know how a team this good and this experienced is just night after night getting roasted in transition. I don't get it.
Can we at least agree that they are the ceiling floor playoff team this year? I could see them losing in 5 in round 1, and I could see them making the finals.
I have a better ceiling floor playoff team for you.
Okay, what is it?
Who is number 6 on my pressure
list?
list?
All right, well, tell me when we get there. Yeah, okay. So we agree. So you're up now.
Let's just do Clippers now. Clippers were number 2 on my list.
I had Harden number 3.
So there we go. So Harden, look, we don't need to do the James Harden discussion. Everyone knows what the James Harden discussion is. This is another chance. Look, I mean, this one is obvious. The trade has worked. They've come together like this. Kawhi looks unbelievable.
The trade has worked to the point that people I know at the Clippers are like taunting me on how wrong I was about the trade. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm a logical guy. Logic said this trade wasn't going to work.
I was lukewarm on it. And compared to you, I was much more optimistic. But I wasn't. I didn't like.
Well, you did the Zach move. You kept kind of both sides
I was in the middle.
That's why you're the best.
But I understood what they were going for, and I had a roadmap of how it would work. But like Kawhi, one of the bets they made was Kawhi is going to be all right moving off the ball more because he's still going to get his touches, and he's going to realize how much easier 28 points become for him and how many just easy threes he's going to get. And he's going to be able to translate that, all that expended energy now gets to go on defense. He looks unbelievable. Paul George should be an all-star. I just like the reason the pressure is there is obvious. These guys have been together for 5 years now, Kawhi and PG.
Yeah.
1 conference finals, 3 playoff series
The
wins
Phoenix
total.
thing was really bad luck. I mean, you could argue the bubble was bad luck, and then Phoenix in 21 getting there instead of them because Kawhi got hurt.
And that looked like the year.
They were probably the best team in the West. I know Phoenix made it. I hate doing you weren't the best team even though you made it. But I do think the Clippers had the best team that year in the West.
And then Kawhi gets hurt. Kawhi gets hurt in the Utah series, which they then finish without him. They win 2 games against Phoenix, which is a good showing. Paul George kind of redeemed the bubble thing, the bubble side of the backboard show.
It speaks to how much better the league is now. Because I don't think that Phoenix team would have a chance to make the finals this year. The league's just better and deeper and more talented now.
Well, everybody took advantage of the Denver interregnum of 2 seasons where they just didn't have their team. And everybody knew, like, there's this awesome team. Just kind of got to wait for Murray and Porter. But, like, the Serbian dude is real good. And
it's a little similar to the late 70s when Bill Walton got hurt. And there were these 2 finals that they just would have been in, and instead they weren't. And then we got Seattle and Washington. This is a million years ago. But we got Seattle and Washington in 78, 79. But it's basically because Bill Walton got hurt. And you could say that Jamal Murray, the timing of it, it's very similar.
So the Clippers thing is obvious. They're old. They've had a lot of cracks at it. They traded everything to build this team. I think they still have one more trade in them to make. And you have, other than Kawhi, all this like LA basketball royalty all together trying to bring the cursed LA franchise the first championship in its history.
Doing it very unselfishly, which is the big surprise for me.
I think they can win it. Like, I think they're like a stone cold. Denver is still the best team in the West to me until proven otherwise. But I think the Clippers right now are the biggest threat to Denver. And
So can we go rock, paper, scissors? Because I don't think they can beat Minnesota.
So when you said ceiling floor playoff team, what's your best one? Minnesota's mine. Like, I think Minnesota is a very good matchup for Denver. I'll still pick Denver in the series to be clear. Denver. But something about Minnesota's size at least gives Denver like a little like, ooh, this is
it's a lot of stuff to throw Jokic.
Kind of uncomfortable for like kind of. But if you told me Minnesota is like 2-2 in the first round against pick whoever is the 7th seed, I'd be like, oh, okay. And then the pressure. Then that's why they're high in my pressure rankings, because it feels like it's all gravy for this franchise that has sucked for so long. But they're gonna. They have the financial sort of Damocles hanging over their head of like, we can't keep this team together forever. Probably, we'll see, maybe. So we really need to make something of this year. And B, you're not like the underdog anymore. Like, hey, we won a game against Denver. Like, great showing. Like, it's going to be, you go down 1-0. You know how it is. If they're the number 1 seed, they lose game 1 at home. It's like an avalanche.
Then it's game 2. Game 2, you're down 8 with 4 minutes left. And Edwards is like, oh my God, I got to score 10 points at once. Yeah.
How did we start talking about Minnesota? Oh, because the Clippers, you were going to say something about the Clippers.
Well, I was saying, I think Minnesota, that would be a tough matchup for them because they have wings to throw in their wings. They have size. And it's just kind of, it would be odd because I think the Clippers would end up probably going small. And then we would have this small ball, big ball thing. Lou's really good. I mean,
he is
even navigating this Westbrook thing. The Westbrook thing, and his stats are not as good as they were when he plays more minutes, but he can come into these games sometimes and affect the game, which is what you're supposed to do as a bench guy, right? It's not going to happen every game, but once in a while he'll go in, he'll grab 9 rebounds in 20 minutes and change the pace of what's happening.
Somehow they have engineered it, obviously so that he plays less, but that there are just less possessions, fewer possessions, where the ball ends up in his hands.
Yeah.
Behind the 3-point arc, which is like what you don't want. Like, all right, we ran a pick and roll, and like the only alternative we had was to kick it to Russ in the corner. There's like one of those a game now, or 2 of them a game, and the rest of it is like he's doing Russ stuff.
Do you think he's on the team in March?
Yeah.
Last Clipper thing. The fans at the game against OKC the other night was the best Clippers crowd I could remember since Lob City when people were really into Blake. I think there's been a weird relationship with the fans and the crowd and the team and like the load management stuff. And even when they got Harden, it's like, what is this? I think the fans like this team. And they're, by the way, way more fun to watch than the Lakers.
Like Lakers is a grind. Lakers, but Lakers that's how they play. They want to beat the hell out of you physically.
Yeah, the Lakers aren't that fun. It's not fun to go to their games. It's a lot of standing around and low post stuff and people throwing up threes. And the way the Clippers play, it's really, I'm stunned, but it's really fun to watch.
All right, who's next on your list?
Kevin Durant.
We're actually aligned. The Suns are fourth on my list. Again, I think we probably have them higher than most people would because they've kind of been like, oh, let's wait and see how their team is.
If it goes badly this year and they're out in round one, and it's not like next year is going to be better with the team they have, it just feels like Durant has missed this window, starting with that last Golden State year where he gets hurt right as they're almost definitely going to win the title. And then just one thing after another, and now it's going to be 2025, that there's some numbers with him that even though like the traditional numbers are pretty good, like his clutch numbers are really bad this year. And eye test wise, it just feels like it's a little easier to stop him at the end of games. He's also been in the league since 2007, and I think when you get to that 15, 16 year mark, we saw it happen with LeBron. Like, like the Lakers having a offense that's in the 20s for 5 of the 6 years that he's been on the team. It's because even though his stats are the same, he's a little different at this point of his career. He's just not as good as he was in Miami. And with Durant, if it goes badly this year, I'm not positive what the moves are. And then what happens if Booker's like, this sucks?
It's a bit.
I just gave you a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I'll do the team first.
Yeah.
I don't remember who said it first when they made the trade for Beal. I like your dog is chiming in. Someone said, well, this is really like a 2-year window for them. The first year is going to be kind of an adjustment period, and then they'll have this other year where it's like they'll be fully optimized. There's no 2-year window. Like, this is now. Like, you got to win right now. You just traded everything possible for Durant, who's either 35 or 36. And
35. Going to be 36.
You have this big three, and you have all the role players, and maybe you could remodel the roster on the fringes in the summer. The window is now, and they finally have their team. They look like they're pretty damn good. But look, I mean, in the West,
with Durant, go back the last 2 playoffs. Tatum completely outplayed him in 22.
We haven't heard the whole story of that series because that was like Durant did not look nearly like himself in this. Remember the turnovers? Like, there were a couple he just like dropped the ball out of bounds.
I actually thought maybe Tatum, he just was kind of taken aback by how good Tatum, like he almost wasn't prepared mentally for what. That was the best Tatum's ever played in a series.
But here's the reality for Phoenix.
But then last year, same thing. Like he just wasn't the best guy on the court.
Well, they were pretty damn good, and then they just ran into a buzzsaw in the second round. But they were pretty good for beat the Clippers.
But he's Kevin Durant. He's supposed to be one of the best players in the league.
He is one of the best players in the league. But now they have, a better big three, I think, than they had last year. Nurkic has made both of us eat a little crow. Like, he's been pretty good.
Oh, I'm not eating anything. So, like, honestly, like, first of all, if he plays, what's he on pace to play, like 79 games? Get out of here. It's not happening.
In any case, they're 22 and 18. The 4 seed is the Clippers at 26 and 14. And the top 4, although Oklahoma City's in a little bit of a slump for them right now, don't look like they're going anywhere. Which is a long way of saying Phoenix's ceiling might be 5th. That's a really hard run to go through.
I'll go further. I think they're going to be a playing team. How about that prediction? That's not even a prediction.
They have a ton of road games to make up.
Also, you're talking about if anything happens to one of the 3 guys, they're a 500 team. I think the Clippers, absolutely, unless some horrible injury happens, I think we have our top four
Top
now.
four are done. I would be shocked if those aren't the top four.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't be shocked if Kawhi all of a sudden was gone for a month and a half. I just, injury standpoint, it's week to week with the Clippers. But yeah, I think that's top four. And then New Orleans is 25-17, and how many stupid games have they blown this year? Like 7?
They're good. I like New Orleans.
So to me, that's the 5. And then Sacramento, Dallas, Phoenix. Can't count out the Lakers.
Nope. They didn't really factor into my pressure index because I feel like they just got to figure out their team before we start talking about the big picture stakes.
I don't think they're important enough to factor in. But Austin Reeves would have been my pressure guy for them.
Interesting. I just think Phoenix and Durant, he's just endlessly fascinating to me as a player to think about because there's never really been a player like him. He's an archetype all to himself.
Yeah.
How comfortable he is on the ball, off the ball, all of it. And then you just like there's just no denying that his career post Oklahoma City has been weird. And he went to Golden State, 2 titles, 2 finals MVPs, was visibly unhappy even before the third year and before Draymond yelling at him on the bench became like an explosion.
He was unhappy with Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, and Klay Thompson, and Andre Iguodala. That's weird in itself.
When you've made that point many times, and
I like KD. I wish he had just stayed with the Warriors.
Well, so this is okay. That's choice number one, but I think some part of him seems to have gotten to the Warriors, won, and realized I'm never going to get the credit for this. Like this is always going to be historically weird.
We've talked about this.
And my reaction to that was like, how did you kind of not realize that was going to be
I don't
the
think
reaction?
he fully realized how just popular Steph is in the Bay Area.
Well, and also like
I don't think you can really fully realize it till you're there every day and you're on Steph's team and you're like, holy shit.
And it is no one, certainly not me, questioned his choice or his ability to choose whatever team he wanted to go to. You want to go to a 73-win team that lost in the finals? That's totally your choice. You want to live in San Francisco? You have a million reasons.
I kind of liked it.
You want to play with these dudes who are super fun to play with and it's amazing? That's fine. But what comes with that is if it's as easy as it looks like it's going to be, it's just the championships aren't going to be lauded universally the same way as the heaviest lifting championships ever. And I've always thought, like, I wonder if he had to do that summer over again, would he choose the Warriors again? He probably doesn't think like that because people don't.
16?
Yeah, because people don't think like that. Like, oh, my experiences are what they are. They've informed the person I am today. I did win 2 titles, 2 finals MVPs, cemented my legacy in that way. I just wonder. I would love to have that conversation with him someday. I don't know what the right choice was, though. It wasn't like great. The Boston people will always say, "Oh, we had the right team for him." I never really bought it.
I think the other choice, because I've done some digging over the years on this, I think would have been to just do a 1 year with OKC and go back for one last run with those guys because they were so close, and do it that way. But I think he wanted to change his life. I mean, the reason I defended at the time, and even after spending time with him doing different podcasts, like he was like 19 when he got to OKC. It was the second place ever that he had his own room. Like the first time he ever had like his own bed in his own room was at the University of Texas.
He was in Seattle for a year.
Oh, that's what I meant. Seattle first. Yeah, Seattle, OKC. He was there for 9 years.
Strange start to your professional career.
Yeah, he was like a baby. And then he kind of grew up, and then he wanted to see what the world was like. So he went to San Francisco. I'm okay with it.
I'm totally okay with it.
I'm not okay with 2019 because I I just wish he had seen the big picture and been like, this is a black swan event that I ended up on this team with Steph and Klay. I should stay
and win 5 championships.
They might have won 7.
Wonder what else. I mean, obviously the Knicks is the other path not taken. That same, that was the setup, right? Is that like Kyrie and KD?
They were too much of a mess. I think the Wizards in 16 could have been interesting, but he never even interviewed with them. He didn't want to play there.
Didn't get a meeting.
But he could have done Wall and Beal and KD in 2016 would have been fun. Who'd you have for number 5?
Beal has not played what I would consider a meaningful playoff game in 7 years. I think that series against the Celtics
He was pretty good in that series. Yeah.
He was very good in that series. He's had some really good playoff. I looked it up today. He had 71 points combined in Game 6 and 7 of those series on good shooting. And early in his career, they beat the Bulls when they're just like a young, precocious 20-year-olds, John Wall and Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
They take the Hawks, the 60-win Hawks, to the distance. I think they lost in 6, but they might have beat that team if John Wall didn't get hurt. Or they had a chance anyway. He's had some good playoff moments. I'm excited to see him now, with real stakes again. Hey, reclaim your legacy, reclaim your big game reputation, all that.
I'm at a different point with Beal. I've kind of given up on him as a star, so everything will be a pleasant surprise now. So he can't lose with
playing
me.
well right now. He looks kind of
yeah. That's
fine. I got to go next.
Yep.
Sixers/Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I had Embiid 5. Because all this stuff is great in the regular season, but I cannot remember a single awesome Joel Embiid postseason.
You cannot remember a single loss?
Awesome.
Oh, awesome Joel Embiid postseason. Well, I mean, there have been awesome games, but there's also been, you look at some of the final games, including last year against Boston, and then there was the series against the Hawks. I think he had 16 turnovers combined in the last
Hawks
2 games
series. He got scot-free out of that series because of Ben Simmons, and he was bad.
And the Raptors series in 2019, the Kawhi in-and-out shot.
He was bad.
But he statistically was bad, and he was sick, and there's always something. He has a game in that Hawks series where he was 4 of 20, I think, in Game 4. And he was dealing with a meniscus thing in his knee. So there has been, he got his face broken 1 year, knee stuff. And in that series against Toronto, he was under the weather and he was injured for part of it. And that was the series where they were
you sound like a mom making excuses for
no,
their
they were also
son.
but the other bottom line is they were plus $1 million with Embiid on the floor and minus $1 million and more with
well, you know
Embiid
what? He was
off
fine
the floor.
last year and they choked at home in Game 6 and no-showed Game 7.
But he no-showed Game 7 too.
I know.
And they have all this cap space this summer, up to $55 million, according to Bobby Marks. I checked with him today.
Cool. There's nobody available.
We'll see. They have 3 first-round picks to trade right now. That becomes 5.
Who is?
I don't know. You just never know. One thing I've learned with Daryl Morey is you actually really never know. You never know. Chris Paul's on the Rockets. Whoa, that's weird. They have 5 first-round picks to trade this summer, 3 right now. My fear for them is they're going to get too cute. We got to preserve this cap space, but then I think what they're they beat Denver at home the other night. Philly's on a back-to-back, and they beat Denver in Philly, granted, but the Sixers were the team on the back-to-back.
I watched it.
Great win. I think the question that they're probably asking themselves is are we already good enough? Do we need no move? Do we need just a small move?
They need
Do we
another
need to
scorer.
go big?
They have to get
who? One of the Bogdanoviches. You want Detroit Bogdanovic.
No, they just need one other person. They have 2.5 scorers right now, right? Because Harris isn't somebody I would be running plays for with 3 minutes left in a Game 7. But they're playing the Celtics. The Celtics have people to throw on both of those guys. They have people to throw on Embiid, and they have people to throw on Maxey.
Now, Maxey turned the corner a little bit against Boston in the playoffs last year.
He's never been
his stats against Boston are bad.
They're bad. He's never been the number 2 guy with real pressure in April and May and June. So I personally, if I was a Philly fan, I'd want to get, Bogdanovic ideally, but somebody who could at least give me a little scoring. And I think Bruce Brown is perfect for them. I would be
ultra aggressive if I were them. I would
Me
say,
too.
I wouldn't quite say to hell with my cap space, but I'm not going to be too precious with it. If the guy I get has a year and $20 million left on his contract, then fine, we'll figure it out in the summer if that's the guy that I think helps my team. And I do agree with you. I think it needs to be someone who can create offense when shit gets tight, when Joel gets double teamed and Maxey's on the bench, or you kick it to Maxey.
You need a third scorer. The Celtics had this in 22. Tatum and Brown, those guys don't have it. Okay, now what are we going to do? And then it's Marcus Smart firing up threes with 2 minutes left.
And you just look at their starting 5: Maxey, Melton, Harris, Batum, Joel.
We've seen Batum in the spring, by the way. I'm not going to be afraid of him in the corner in May.
First, can we agree Joel Embiid has been the best player in the NBA this year per minute?
Yeah,
I think he's been better than Jokic this year.
I value durability, so I will
Jokic
agree
has
when
played
he plays
400 more minutes.
Yeah, like Embiid doesn't play for 4 games and then he plays for 2, and I don't know. I said this on my pod on Thursday. Like, I would kind of like to see him play at Denver this year. Can we get that? Can it just not be a thing where Jokic comes to you and plays on your turf, but you don't go to Denver?
I think we're probably going to see it.
Okay, I'd like to see it.
January 27th, I think.
Yeah.
Their next game.
Please show up for that game, Embiid.
So I think I said this last year and was ironic. I said this like a year ago now. So if the Sixers keep putting teams around Joel Embiid that are good enough to make deep playoff runs, we are going to get an Embiid postseason. We're going to get the postseason where he just lays waste.
The 1994 Hakeem.
The Jokic postseason from last year. Like, we're going to get one where it's just every game. Yeah, sure, you have an 11 of 24 in there somewhere, but you get to the line 15 times. You're just every game, like Jokic just controls every possession of the game. We're going to get that. And then we got the same Joel Embiid playoffs last year. It's like, oh, he fell 20% short of his regular season production again. Is it going to come? Because you're like, at some point, it's either got to come or they're just never going to win the championship.
Patrick Ewing was kind of like that.
Oh, that hurts. That hurt my soul.
No, but he was one of those. He just could never quite get over the hump when it really mattered, but was a great player. I mean, I have him probably in my top 40.
Do you like DeJounte Murray for the Sixers?
I don't.
Do you like Terry Rozier for the Sixers?
So I had him for the Heat. I love Terry Rozier.
That's very astute.
There's some Rozier Heat buzz that's been building the last couple days.
I mentioned it last week for a reason.
Yeah, that's also like if we were doing central casting for the freaking Heat culture reality show, like the Terry Rozier would be oh, let's bring this guy back for a second interview. He's like the perfect Heat culture guy.
And I have heard through people close to him that I always worry with guys like that. Like, I'm worried about this with Kuzma a little bit, that they go to these bad teams.
Yeah.
And they like forget almost how to play like regular basketball, like regular good team basketball. I've heard like he would go there and be like, I'm like easily the 3rd or 4th best player on the team. Like, I have no delusions of what I am within this universe. Who knows if they get him?
Kuzma would be like, I can't wait to walk in the pregame for the TNT cameras. I'm out on Kuzma. Sorry, Kuzma. You seem like a nice guy. I'm out.
I'm not out on him at all.
I'm out.
But the Heat, Rozier. Rozier, I think.
Rozier to Philly would be incredible.
I think their issue would be, it's the same issue with all these teams who have one really awesome small guard. Can we play him with another one? Like, defensively, is that just going to be murder? And it limits the pool of players you can trade for. This is why, like, Caruso would be a guy that would be great for them, because you know that guy can guard. He guards 4s. Like, he guards everybody. He's a monster.
Like, let's say they got Caruso and Bruce Brown. I would be like, shit.
Someone mentioned DeRozan to me. I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
I love that one, but I do think the great unanswered question about the Bulls, who clearly are not on our championship pressure index, is
didn't have them.
All the buzz around the league is they do want to trade LaVine. They may not be able to do it. They don't want to bottom out, so that's why they're like stiff arming people on Caruso. Like, we want to actually keep a competitive team. The unanswered question is like, what does that mean for DeRozan? He's a free agent. Are they just going to pay DeRozan? Like, is that the plan? They're just going to re-sign?
What draft was he? 09?
He's like...
Yeah, he's like legitimately old for a shooting guard.
So that's why this person threw DeRozan at me. And I'm like, hey, he doesn't shoot threes. He's not a great defensive player. But he is like... He can get me some buckets when things get hairy.
All right, so game 5, Boston, 2-2 series. There's 5 minutes left.
Is he on the floor?
Embiid, Maxey, Harris, Batum. Who's the 5th guy?
Right now, as president?
No, just who's the ideal 5th guy if those are the other 4?
It might be a guy like Bruce Brown. You might be right. That may be the name. Moving without the ball.
I think they need like a glue guy, doesn't need the ball, but just does. Now, you could say Batum is a glue guy, but
they're going to do something. I just don't know how big it's going to be. And maybe there is no big name, big money guy that actually fits and it's worth what they can give. And so they just get 2 of these guys that we're talking about. Just give me extra fortification all over the place.
How many finals trips combined have Embiid and Daryl Morey made?
Oh, that's not nice.
I'm not trying to be mean. They've made 0 finals. They have a real chance to make the finals this year. They have expiring contracts and picks to trade, and they have 2 of the best. They have one of the best 3 or 4 players in the league, and then Maxey is one of the best 25 to 30 players in the league. Go get somebody, and their coach is really good.
I'm just gonna go rapid fire.
Wait, I'm up.
Okay, go.
I had Griffin 6th. My next one I was really excited about, and you're probably gonna lean back and be bummed out.
It's a player?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to lean back and be bummed out.
Bam Adebayo.
Oh, the Bam. Don't do this. Don't.
I'm going to do it.
What is has he won too much for your taste?
No. You know I like Bam Adebayo.
Okay.
Might be in a situation in 3 straight series in the East where he's not the best big.
So, yeah, look, you're in the same conference as Giannis, Embiid, and...
You know who gives him problems? Kristaps Porzingis.
Oh, stop. But we know who's a better player between the two of them.
Yeah, but did you see him try to guard Porzingis? Porzingis is like 10 inches taller than him.
Porzingis is very tall.
I thought the Celtics, that was the first time I was like, they finally figured out a way to F with Miami. With just size. And Bam actually looks small in one of the Boston games, and I got super excited about it.
Well, this is the why the Celtics are constructed the way they are. You would love to be able to say, all right, Bam, you guard this wing over here who doesn't shoot, and so like you can roam around. There is no such thing. So you have to guard Porzingis. You have no other place to put your center. I'm glad you mentioned Miami. We talked about Rozier. Here's the choice. We all know what they have to trade salary-wise, right?
Lowry, $30 million.
Yeah.
Nikola Jovic is like another 3 or 4. They have a couple other pieces.
If it comes down to, do we include 1 first-round pick to get whoever the player is?
Yes.
Even if it means if a superstar becomes available in the next year, we can't throw 6 picks, 5 picks.
Who's the superstar? Mitchell?
I'm glad you brought up Donovan Mitchell.
Who's playing awesome right now?
No one has whispered the word Cleveland Cavaliers on ESPN television.
They're like a 4 seed.
They're like 11-3 in their last 14 games. They're playing out of their mind. Jared Allen's playing out of his mind. Sam Merrill's like good.
Yeah.
He's good. He's moving around. He's making plays, pump and go and make plays. Mitchell is playing.
That's a good award, by the way, though.
Well.
The white guy shooter, like out of nowhere award. Who do we name that after? The Joe Harris Award?
Duncan Robinson.
Every year there's one white guy who's
the donkey.
20 the donkey.
This year's donkey.
23 to 26-year-old out of nowhere, all of a sudden shooting 50% from 3.
They're like, so when they get Mobley and Garland back, there will be a legitimate, like, all right, we have to go back to the way we played. Like, we're going to like hit a slump for 5 games figuring it out. But like
5 games.
They're good, man.
Maybe they're playing well because they have less guys.
But that conversation, I'm actually surprised that has not been more of a talking point. Like,
it should be.
Are they better off without? But like, what are you supposed to do? Trade Evan Mobley?
No, but
trade Jared Allen.
Sometimes teams have, like I said this somebody the other day. The Warriors have been a Klay Thompson, like 10-game ankle sprain away from their team falling into place. They just have too many guys, and the minutes are off, and.
That's fair.
Sometimes you just have one too many guys.
But also you need awesome players to win playoff series. And like, yes, the fit may be imperfect, but those guys are, if not awesome, they're close to awesome. Like, they're really, really good.
Yeah, but do you think the Garland-Mitchell combo makes sense? Because I don't. I love both of the guys individually as players.
It hasn't gelled the way that they hoped and the way that it should. And for my taste, it's been a little too much of like the Donovan Mitchell show at times.
Totally
but
agree.
The show right now is must-see television. But at the end, like, you do just need a raw talent level to actually win in the playoffs. And so they just need those guys. They need to spin them into other time. I don't know. But my whole point was I'm very impressed with what they've done. And if they keep playing like this, like, they're like, I don't know what happens with Donovan Mitchell, but you know, the Heat to me are like, they've beaten Philly in the playoffs recently. They've beaten Boston in the playoffs twice in the last 4 seasons. They've beaten Milwaukee. They've beaten Milwaukee in the playoffs twice in the last 4 seasons. They're not scared of any of these
Milwaukee.
teams. Yeah, they destroyed Milwaukee.
Milwaukee fired their coach and made a franchise-altering trade.
Like, they're not scared of any of these guys. Hero's been good. They're deeper than they were last year. If I'm them, I'm like, I might take a shot at one more guy who's like a starter level guy.
Rozier or better than Rozier?
Yeah, I don't know. There's some Washington, Milwaukee. Well, I'm sorry, Washington, Miami, like possibilities that make sense with like Tyus Jones and. Maybe a Shamet comes to Miami, and I don't know if that moves the needle, but
it certainly didn't.
So
move
why
my
Bam?
needle.
Why are you singling out Bam? Just the pressure of guarding these guys around.
But does
after
Bam?
round.
Has he won a title? Because last time I checked, he hasn't.
Is that all?
No, but you asked who has pressure. He is their only guy going round by round against Giannis, Embiid, and then the Tatum Porzingis combo, and he's the best guy in the team to guard all of those guys.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's a freaking gauntlet. That's 7 weeks, Zach Lowe.
So
it's like, oh, good, I got through Giannis. Oh, there's Joel Embiid. Like, that's a nightmare.
He's ready. Bam's ready to do that.
Okay, I'm just saying there's pressure.
My next team was Minnesota, which you already kind of talked about.
Oh, my next guy was Towns.
It is. I've already said, like, my biggest question with Minnesota is
Towns?
Not just Towns, but like nut cutting time late in games. Do Edwards and Towns make the right decisions with the ball? Like,
probably not.
I will fast forward through Minnesota because we've done that.
Who is your ninth guy?
I don't know. I've lost track.
I had Paul George as my ninth guy.
Playoff P.
Playoff P.
Clippers. I will pose this question to you because it's something I thought about myself as I made my list.
Okay.
Is it wrong, dumb, somehow fundamentally incorrect that we have gotten this far and nowhere in our championship pressure index has come the Denver Nuggets?
So I had Aaron Gordon 10th.
Why?
Why?
Because both of us, like, yes, they won, and so obviously that relieves some pressure. But you and I both know, having followed this league our whole lives, these windows are very precious things.
Yep.
What they have in Jokic is like, it's not going to last forever.
So back-to-back ain't nothing.
Why
either.
is there not more? I mean, and their front office acted with urgency, like the way Calvin Booth traded future picks for more picks now and get all these like experienced rookies like Strother and and Peyton Watson's not a rookie but a second-year guy, and like they are acted like a team that it's just interesting that they're. Maybe there's just nothing. I don't know why.
They're the only team that knows they don't have to worry about the regular season. So I'd start there.
Are you worried about their bench at all?
Yeah. They have a multiple guy. I liked last year when like somebody like Bruce Brown came in and he's like, I'm not scared. Let's go. I don't know if their guys are going to be scared.
So let's do their bench. Their bench is Reggie Jackson. I trust Reggie Jackson.
I at least trust him not to be scared. I'm all in the are you going to be scared mode. He's not going to be scared.
Christian Brown.
Won't be scared.
Peyton Watson.
No idea.
I like how he's playing.
I like him. No idea what he's going to be like in May.
Julian Strother.
No idea.
I like him too.
To me, they're a buyout guy waiting to happen.
Then you're like the DeAndre Jordan, Zeke Naji, backup center conundrum thing.
Yeah.
I actually like all of those guys as individual bench players. None of them are like as good as your classic 6-man on a championship team. And the numbers are awful. But like the on-off numbers are awful. But a lot of those are like Michael Malone again doing the thing where he plays 5 bench guys together in the regular season, which he will not do in the playoffs. They'll be like Murray and Gordon with them. And so like I actually think they have enough. I just think it's curious that they don't. I guess it's just because they won, and so they won. And it's like,
I just think when you have Jokic, you don't really have to worry about stuff. I would be worried about Aaron Gordon because and it was happening last year in the playoffs, especially in the Lakers series, where they were trying to get into his head. They just weren't guarding him at all and forcing him to make a couple. But this year he's shooting like 27% from 3, and the smart teams are just leaving him like alone.
Well, and weirdly, that was the headline of the Jokic-Embiid matchup, is they didn't guard each other, and Embiid guarded Aaron Gordon and didn't guard him. And I worry less about that despite his shooting numbers being so bad, because
all his numbers are worse this year than last year.
I just feel like they know what that is and what it feels like, and they have the best problem solver in the entire league holding the ball. So
that's why we're not worried about Denver. But Gordon, I think there's going to be a series where he's like 0 for 9 in the first 3 games from 3, and then game 4 starts, and he's just by himself in the corner, and they're going to try to navigate it.
All right, go through the rest of your list real fast.
Gobert, Chet, and Kristaps. I took Kristaps out of my Celtics section. The Chet thing I just thought of because that game we went to when he looked overwhelmed, and you're like, oh, shit, that's right. This guy's 20. And they have a real chance to.
I didn't come away thinking he looked that overwhelmed. He didn't have a good offensive game.
He was
but
awful.
I thought defensively he was aggressive and was a presence at the rim even late in the game.
He was awful offensively.
He was not good offensively.
And then I'd Gobert at 11th just because as great as the season's gone for him, and he was clearly injured last year and a bunch of stuff going on. I thought he did a really good podcast with Austin Rivers for us, actually, that I learned a lot.
TV's Austin Rivers?
Yeah. TV's Austin Rivers has a podcast for us. And I didn't realize how hurt Gobert was. They were talking about it, and Austin was talking about, I would see you in the trainer's room, and I really respected how you kept playing games, even though we all knew you were hurt. Like, we all knew, like, you're a warrior. And I was like, I didn't know Gobert was hurt last year because he does look different. But we're going to get to a playoff series, and it's going to be the same old conundrum of what do you do the last 5 minutes? Are people going to hack a Gobert? He's been a little better with free throws this year, but that spotlight goes right on him.
Well, and look, I haven't checked today, but the last time I checked, they're 20th in offense. Like, their offense just has not been good. They have massive turnover
Mike Conley's old.
And they're really dependent on Mike Conley to settle them down and make the right decisions with the ball. Their offense makes me a little uneasy. Their defense is completely 100% legit and will put them in every single game.
And I love the competitiveness. Edwards is the least afraid 22-year-old I've ever seen ever in the league, but other than maybe like Dwayne Wade. I forget how old he was in 05, the year before they won. But he's coming in with like, he's just could not be less scared of anybody. Like Draymond tried to talk to him during Draymond's crazy stint.
And Ant wouldn't have it.
Ant was like, are you kidding? And was just going right back at him. Wait, before we go, I have 2 things for you, including one that will break your brain.
Well, that's a tradition. You have to do it.
All-Star, you gave up your vote. I was super disappointed in you.
I know you've expressed that privately.
But, so am I supposed to vote for 2 Lakers when they're not 500?
You can vote for, it's your ballot.
But should there
First of all, you only vote for starters. So you can vote for no Lakers.
I know, but then we do our things with
your picks.
Yeah, the picks and 12 people.
I think you vote for 2 Lakers. I think that's okay. That's not unprecedented.
I think there should be an unwritten rule. If your team can't go for 500, I can't give you 2 All-Star spots.
Can I tell you what?
There's 12 spots.
Can I tell you what I was shocked by when I listened to your podcast with Joe House?
Yeah.
About All-Star blink test.
It was a half-ass blink test. Yeah.
It was fine, but I was shocked that. So you're hesitant to give the Lakers 2. 1 is a lock, right? One of them is going to make your ballot.
I think AD has to be. I think AD's been awesome this season.
Simmons leaving LeBron off the All-Star ballot.
No, I don't want to leave LeBron off, but do I have to put 2 Lakers on a 20 and 22 team? They get 2 of the 12 spots? That's crazy.
We've seen that before with top-heavy teams, and
I'm just saying I don't like it.
But I don't
want to put 2 Kings on.
But
either.
Here's what I was surprised by. But that Anthony Davis. I was gonna say Anthony Davis and LeBron are better than both those guys. De'Aaron Fox is pretty damn good, and like Sabonis, for all the flaws people nitpick, he's ground bound defensively. He can't protect the rim. Blah blah. Like he tries hard defensively.
You mean he's first in the league in rebounds and 7th in the league in assists?
Are insane.
He's having a better year than LeBron James
every third game.
All right, I'm treading carefully because LeBron's the second best player of all time. But if you're 23rd in offense,
I know I've talked about their offense things.
If you're 23rd in offense,
the Kings are like 15th.
Why doesn't he get blamed for that?
The Kings are like 15th.
But he's 23rd. Like he's like the Lakers are just a tail above Charlotte and teams like that. So I know he's getting his stats, but isn't it his job to make sure they're at least like the 15th offense? And how much can we blame it's Austin Reeves' fault? Well, remember when it was Malik Monk's fault?
So what is he not doing that you would like to see him
I don't know.
More?
I just wanted to talk it out. I just want, if somebody is supposed to be an all-star, then that means, all right, what are you doing the best at? All right, I'm really good on offense. Okay, how's your team doing on offense? We're 23rd. Now I have to have 2 all-stars?
Your counterpoint would be, like, at least I know AD is the reason their defense is 9th or 8th or 10th or whatever it is.
Yeah, like and that. Look, if people want to say, look, there's a whole other thing. LeBron has to be in the All-Star game because he's LeBron. So obviously I'm going to vote for him because I want to see the best players in the All-Star game. But I don't feel good about voting for 2 Lakers. Because I don't think in the West, as loaded as it is, like OKC is going to have 1 All-Star and the Lakers are going to have 2.
So talk it out. Who is Chet or J-Dub better?
J-Dub's a tough one because he's
really good.
So good.
Is he better than LeBron James? Is he more deserving of an All-Star berth than LeBron James? I don't. That's a hard argument to make.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that argument. Also, there's a star power element, but
I was surprised on your podcast that you seemed not just hesitant, but outright rejecting of the idea that the Boston Celtics could get 3 All-Stars. You were like 2 max. That said, I don't even want to discuss
the league's too
else.
deep. The league's too good. But that goes back to the Lakers' point.
Let me bring up the standings. I mean, they are 4 games ahead of everybody else in the league almost. Or the last time I checked, they were.
I think it should be Jalen and Tatum. And
they're 32-9. They're only 2 games in the loss column over Minnesota, but they're 4 games up on everybody in the East. And you just outright dismissed
because the league's too deep. All-Star. The league's too deep. And then same thing for should we have 2 Kings and 2 Lakers in the West? That's
what about 2 Suns?
I wouldn't do it. To me,
Devin
it's like
Booker
pick
out.
a Sun.
Devin Booker out.
Pick a Sun, pick a Laker, pick a King. I think is where my head's at.
It is interesting that, like, is there a second Timberwolf? Timberwolf. Is there a second Timberwolf?
I think Gobert and Edwards should both make it. But that team's really doing well.
I think Cat's not getting enough love for how adaptable he's been with
you're right.
players.
I'll have to look at it. Cat might get that forward spot, but would you give the second forward spot to Cat? Bump Durant, do Booker? Like, there's some mechanics to it. And I am a big winning guy, as you know. I like records.
But there's also records and there's like perception of records, right? And so the Lakers feel disappointing with 21 wins. The Jazz feel like a revelation with 22 wins because of their preseason expectations. And so I was about to say Markkanen is coming for one of these spots now. They only have 1 more win than the Lakers, but because of what our baseline expectation was, they feel like a much happier story than the Lakers.
All right, if I said to you before the year, Davis and LeBron are going to play the whole season.
I know, it's strange.
You'd have been like, whoa, they're going to be like 32 and 15.
And even you look at Reeves' numbers, and he feels like he's had a disappointing season. His numbers are, like his three-point shooting hasn't been there, but his numbers are okay.
It's going to be real hard for me to vote for 2 of anybody that's not a top 3 or 4 team. All right, here's my brain breaker question.
Okay.
I did this on my pod today, but you didn't hear the pod yet.
I haven't heard it yet. Yeah.
I put it up when you were coming over. Charlotte calls Golden State. And they say...
Oh, God. Okay, give it to me. Give it to me.
They're like, look, man, it's kind of over. Here's your get out of jail free card, but it involves Steph Curry. We'll give you LaMelo. We'll give you the Hayward expiring. We'll take Steph and Clay back, or we'll just take Steph, and we'll give you 4 unprotected first-round picks. Every 2 years, you'll get another unprotected first-round pick. Give us Steph. Do the Warriors have a meeting?
No.
They just hang up.
Well,
how many picks would have to be offered before the Warriors are like, all right, let's at least meet about this?
I don't think they have a meeting, but I think Mike Dunleavy is like on the phone in his office and is like, yo, come in here.
Oh, he puts them like on speaker?
I got Cup Check on the line. Listen to what he's offering. This is crazy. Not that they'd be crazy to do it, but just like, this is like, who calls about Steph Curry? Nobody calls about Steph Curry.
It's almost worth doing if you're Charlotte, right? How many picks before
you have to do it?
What's the record of pick? How many picks can you offer? I guess like 4 first and 3 pick swaps.
Yeah, you can offer 7 total swaps and picks because you can
4 first, 3 pick swaps, and LaMelo Ball.
Do they have any extra? Like if you have extra picks, you can offer. Like if you already have extra picks from other teams, you could throw those in too. You would have to do it and then leak it to the media, so
that you made a Godfather offer.
The Charlotte Observer has to put like sources Warriors or Hornets all in for Curry. The minute you said Charlotte, that's the minute the word Charlotte came out of your mouth, I was like, here comes Steph Curry coming home. Here it comes. Here's the trade proposal.
Steph Curry coming home. You've taken Golden State as far as you could take them. You're the most beloved athlete probably since Willie Mays in the Bay Area. You won 4 titles. You are one of the 10 best players of all time.
Now, I posit this to you. Bill Simmons, author of the Book of Basketball.
Yeah.
Steward of basketball history. If you were the owner of the Golden State Warriors,
I'm hanging up.
Is there any trade offer that there could ever be that you would trade Steph Curry?
No.
It has to be no. You just can't ever do it.
We went through with the Celtics. Like, we were just never trading Larry Bird. I don't care. He had to retire with us.
You as a how old are you when Bird is limping around the court, diving on the floor?
I was a senior in college.
Diving on the floor against
where
Portland.
He's wearing the 30-pound back brace.
You felt in your soul, I want to see this fucking guy on crutches as a Celtic.
Seattle could have offered us Gary, Payton, and Sean Kemp, and I've been like, nope. Here's 5 first. Nope.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
Isn't that cool?
That's why they're never trading him.
That's why sports are sports, because it's totally irrational and it's awesome, and that player means something to you. And the Warriors can never, ever trade Steph Curry. Ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, the point of the exercise was how many picks would have to get thrown in before they had to at least have 7.
If you just took all emotion out of it, you could make 7 Steph Curry trades that the Warriors theoretically in totally cold.
There's only one team. It's Charlotte or bust.
No, but I'm just saying
if he went to them and said, ready to go home? I've always dreamed of playing for Charlotte. It's not happening here. Why don't you trade me to Charlotte?
Remember the orange jerseys? I've always loved those.
Once upon a time, I was shooting threes before Hornets games.
One of my favorite interviews I ever did, I was still with Sports Illustrated, was when in the middle of that 7-59 season, I interviewed Paul Silas, who was the coach of the team, and he just was in full. He was like, Boris Diaw's fat, Desana Job's fat. These guys are out of shape. It was just like he was done with the whole thing. It was great.
All right, that's that. I knew that would break. I got the reaction I wanted, which you were paralyzed for like a second and a half, which was worth it.
As soon as you said Charlotte, I knew where it was going. I knew it was going to be 17 first-round picks and LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
The question is, should Charlotte even do that? You know what? I don't even want to know the answer. I don't want to know the answer.
It's great stuff.
Do you like LaMelo Ball?
I mean, it would be nice if he played more than like 35 games a year. That would be a bonus.
Seasons of
I'm not positive. It's hard for me to imagine him in a multi-series playoff run. I feel the same way, but then it happened with Trae Young, so I don't know if was that like a unicorn event or.
I can't believe we haven't talked about the Hawks this whole time. We're like a sad Hawks optimist support group. Preseason Hawks optimist.
I'm buying everybody's Hawks stock. Jalen Johnson's back. He's like the key to the team.
Hold on. You're buying at 2024 Atlanta Hawks stock?
Yeah, I think they can make the playoffs.
This is a fantastic way to end the podcast.
I think.
What if
I
they
think
trade DeJounte Murray in a rebuilding trade?
I think if they trade him, they're getting somebody back who helps them now. I don't think they want to rebuild.
Who says no? Let's end on a Simmonsism. Who says no? DeJounte Murray for Zach LaVine. DeJounte Murray and matching salary for Zach LaVine. No picks involved at all.
Everyone says no to Zach LaVine. It's like $200 million after this year, right?
It's a lot. Yeah, it's 40 plus for 4 straight years, so it's like 175.
I actually think the Lakers should trade for him, and I say that as somebody who I get it. I'm not a Laker fan, and people are like, "You're just saying that because you don't like the Lakers." I actually think he's what they need. He's a third scorer, and I think he would actually get better, not worse, in this whole Lakers kind of whatever fishbowl they play in. I think he'd get wide open threes. I think LeBron would make him better. And I like his game offensively. I just think he's on the wrong team. But it's a gamble. They can afford to make the gamble because they're year to year with LeBron, right?
I wonder if LeBron would get annoyed by his decision making at times too.
LeBron gets annoyed a lot.
He does.
I think it's been really hard to find. I did this thing on my pod today about all the shooting that they've traded, because everyone out here is like, they just need to find shooters for LeBron. It's like they had Malik Beasley.
And Malik Monk.
They had Malik Beasley. Yeah. They had Malik Monk. They had Caruso. They had KCP. They've had good shooters.
KCP was huge for them in the championship.
Malik Monk had a miserable year here. That guy is like one of the most fun 6 men of the last 10 years.
I literally could not picture one thing Malik Monk did as a Los Angeles Lakers.
He was super fun.
He's very fun now. All right, you got to go. Pressure rankings.
That was great.
Boston #1. I'm happy we agreed on that.
Yeah. Good
Bill
one.
Simmons, the Bill Simmons podcast. What we got? Football.
That's it. A lot of football. Heading into basketball. Trade deadline. This is my favorite time of year.
Rough year for the Pats. Sorry.
It's fine. We get third pick. We're good.
Thank you for your time and inviting me into your sitting room.
Yeah.
/ library.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we should end with I over the years have interviewed and got to know Dejan Milojevic of the Warriors, and obviously the news has been out all over the place that he passed away from a heart attack this week, and the Warriors have had 2 games postponed already. Thoughts to his family. I never got to know any of his family, but I know a lot of the Balkan basketball players because of my connections, and I got to know Dejan a little bit, and obviously just absolutely unfathomable. And it goes without saying that all this basketball talk is just nonsense compared to real life. So I don't know how you bounce back from something like this if you're the Warriors, and just an awful, awful tragedy. And a great coach, like a coach that I interviewed him about Zubats years ago because he coached Zubats for a little while in Serbia, has worked with a lot of the Balkan big men and is a legend over there, and a 46-year-old family man, just awful. So it's one of those things where you don't know what else to say. It's
the worst NBA story in a while.
Just an awful tragedy, and a beloved guy. Like, the Warriors were so excited when they got him over here to work with their team and work with their big men, and just like when the news broke, and I'm not sure what else to say. All right, that's it.
All right, good seeing you, Zach.
Thanks, Bill.